to the Empowered Intuitive Academy podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tay Henderson, and with me is my beautiful co-host, Petra Costa from My Magic Awaits. And you can find us at the Empowered Intuitive Academy on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. Hopefully you're on one of those two watching us right now. Like, follow, subscribe. We would love the support. Today's chat, we are talking about when science fiction becomes fact. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? There is some really whack shit out there that we would think is only in science fiction movies, and that is actually been around a lot longer than we think, or is being in development.
Or has been developed and is pretty close to release.
Yes.
And things that you wouldn't think that you'd bother to try.
Yeah.
Like putting two heads on an animal.
Yeah, I don't know.
I asked the question, why?
Yeah, why?
If anyone's read the fantasy novel, it's called Pelman the Power Shaper, and there was this dragon in it with two heads, and the dragon just kept arguing with itself because it's got two heads.
Brains.
Two brains.
Yep.
Like, how is that? Why?
Siamese dragon. So there's weird shit like that. There's also some cool shit where we're all like, hey, that's kind of cool, you know. I think where the fine line was drawn is like some of the implications and uses, and where it encroaches on like ethics.
That little thing,
because
morality.
we can do that, but should we do that?
Should we do it?
I mean, let's start with you. Where did you go on this journey?
I think some of the easy ones that don't seem like super crazy, but somehow are super crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's our 3D kind of tech that we've got going. And I was looking more at the fact that we're obviously using 3D technology in terms of the camera systems, etc., to be able to scan what's in front of us and get a real view of not as a 2D, but as a 3D and distances of how far things are away from us.
Yeah.
Now, we're already using that tech, obviously, in driverless cars and in accident prevention technology.
Yeah, and a lot of it's just sensors and stuff.
Yeah, accident collision and all of that kind of stuff. So we're getting this idea, but it's moving on, and it's expanding so that we can almost basically send out a whole set of laser lights, shoot them all out like a net of light.
Laser.
And then when it comes back to us, and we use something called stereoscopic vision, so it brings it back, so replicating the two eyes, which is what creates the 3D vision, calculating the time of flight and all that kind of crap, and we can map things.
Yeah.
So we can not just map the car in front of it. So this made me think in terms of science fiction, science fact, of, you know, when the spaceship is hovering over the planet and it just sends that laser out.
Yeah, and then it's
and
got
it does
like the
scan.
whole lay of the land or whatever. It's almost like
those
sonar.
Those cool ass little balls that they send out in what's the first Alien? First one, the one that was the prequel to Alien, can't remember the name of it.
Prometheus?
Yes. Yeah. And they send the balls out and they just map the terrain.
Yeah, and it maps like the whole, yep.
So that's the tech that we're talking about. And of course, we can't put the little balls yet, but we've got the tech. Yeah. So we can map it. So that's a real thing that's here.
Yeah.
And then they pair that with 3D multi-sensor transmitters, which basically what it allows to do, but by using sound waves as well as electromagnetic waves, we can replicate touch. So we basically can work out what something feels like. So we are a spit away from me being able to send you a picture of this top, say, Tay, and then you look at it and go, you can actually touch your screen and feel the texture of my top.
That is kind of cool. That is kind of cool.
That is kind of cool. And what they're doing is they're using it so in the tablets. And they can do it. They just can't do it commercially viably. So it's too expensive at this point in time.
Yes,
We want our tablets to be, you know, relatively cheap.
Yeah.
But the componentry, they can build a componentry in so that when an app comes up on your screen, you can feel the buttons.
Yeah.
So where they've got all of the buttons on the edge and you'll be able to feel them. And it's purely by being able to alter the electromagnetics that our fingers are touching. Now, of course, I went into all of the science behind how these things work and
Yeah.
didn't understand really any of it.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
to be honest,
Bit beyond my pay grade. Yeah.
just too much. But basically, surface haptic devices are devices that will allow this by using electroadhesion, ultrasonic vibration. It decreases the friction force by creating a lubricating squeeze film,
Yeah.
effectively by vibrating the surface of the device. And then they use the opposite of that to when they want you to, so they feel friction or remove friction. It is just crazy. So when you put these things together so that you can actually read your environment in front of you in terms of 3D terms. So I've got camera systems that can tell me where everything is. I've then got devices that can simulate what things feel like. So if I reached out to, if something in an AI environment, or sorry, what do they call it? Augmented reality environment,
Yeah, yeah.
I can actually touch shit that's not there because they can simulate the feel. And it's just like,
That's pretty cool.
that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
I remember when the first bloody feedback remote controller came out for PlayStation.
Yeah.
I remember when that first came out and it was like,
Yeah.
oh
Oh
my
my God, the
God.
dimensions.
I was there in the queue and
Yeah.
I bought them up so fast. And I remember my daughter's godfather used to come over and play video games here all the time, and I bought one as a present for him, and
Yeah.
his just eyes lit up because like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And we got this stuff coming out.
Yes, yes. And augmented reality in gaming is quite big now, especially with like Oculus Rift and stuff like that. Like I remember when that come out, I was like, I want to fucking have a go. I want to have a go. And the first time I got to try like Oculus Rift and augmented reality was actually in like a dementia training. They had a program that you would put the goggles on and you would have to like play like with someone like as someone who has dementia, and it was disorientating as shit. Like the simulation I had, like I was in a bedroom and I was seeing like weird shadowy figures, and then I would go to open a cupboard and next minute I'm in the toilet, and like it was crazy. And
Oh,
you,
wow.
yeah, it's so great. Give it a go. Like it's fucking cool. But I haven't actually yet played Oculus Rift as like a video game, but it is definitely on my to-do list. And even in the game, like we went to an iPlay with the kids the other week, and they had like the augmented reality stations. Like I didn't get to go on it, but Tim and Erica did. And yeah, it was quite funny watching them do it. Like they're trying to point the gun, but the gun's like way over here off the screen because that's where it is in their goggles. And
Wow.
crazy.
See, this is
Yeah.
the thing. For people who don't know what augmented reality is,
Yeah.
augmented reality is different from virtual reality.
Mm.
Virtual reality is where they try to simulate a completely new environment that is
Yeah.
virtual. It doesn't exist. Augmented reality is where they combine what's actually happening around you with other information to create
Yes.
an
Yeah.
augmented view of it.
Yeah.
Now, some of the non-video game applications for this kind of stuff is being able to have telemetry
Yeah.
come up in front of people. So the detail, the maths, just like Terminator, when it's like
Yes.
testing
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
working out whether that leather
Yeah.
jacket
The
fits.
day when we can
Yeah,
just flick a screen up here and throw it over there, and yeah, the
yeah,
tabs will be everywhere. Yeah.
all of that. But they can use this. They're already putting it together in terms of, because Google of what are they called? Apple goggles. Sorry, not
Yeah.
Google.
No, they got Google goggles, and yeah.
Yeah, and
Yep.
they've got
Yep.
all that. They've got new ones coming that are out. They're not all in Australia yet, but they're out in other parts of the world.
Yep.
And but they're just amazing. So can you imagine even just in a warehousing environment? So
Yep.
you're in a warehousing environment, they can actually use augmented reality to put telemetry up of where to pick stuff from. That
Yep.
this is the picking rail you should be getting it from, that you've got your, artificial intelligence giving you your best, scenario of picking that stuff.
Yep.
And
Literally
then you can
like
just
putting
walk
a
around and
hover over a box and being like, yep, this is the contents of this box. And yeah.
Just
Crazy.
crazy. So we've got that. What we can use that for is just extraordinary.
Yeah.
But what someone did say in one of these articles I was reading, and I'm finding I would have thought science-based people wouldn't show their hand so strongly as to their views about different people in the science world, right? But they all seem to have an allegiance. It's almost like a religion. You're either a Zuckerberg person, a Musk person, or
Yes.
whoever the Dickens is that's doing Apple. I don't even know who's doing Apple.
Yeah.
But because, obviously Zuckerberg's going out of his way to create a virtual reality environment where we can actually plug in and just go into a new place and just hang. But Apple's going in a different direction. For people who are not aware of the progression of augmented reality, I'm just going to give you some. We started off using heads-up displays, and we used them back into the 1950s in terms of pilots being able to see all the telemetry and all of the stuff information they needed,
Yes.
so they
Yeah.
didn't have to look down at their instruments when they were
Yeah.
doing shit. So we started off with heads-up display. We then moved on to head-mounted displays where we had a device that we could click on that could give us stuff. We've then taken it one step further and we're going to eyewear, so glasses that can do it. Now, these eyeglasses, they actually can take in the detail. Obviously, it's got to take in what's happening to create a realistic 3D overlay. They've got contact lenses that they're working on.
Yes.
How many movies have you seen the spies
Yeah. And they put the
put the
lenses in.
contact lens in? It's
Yeah.
got all the information coming up.
They can see everything.
They're looking at this to integrate circuitry, LEDs, and antennas for wireless communication in a contact lens.
That's crazy, isn't
Okay,
it?
the one thing I'm going to finish off on in terms of augmented reality, even though this is just absolutely fascinating to me, I just absolutely love it.
Yeah.
They've got one thing that's called a virtual retinal display, which
Yeah.
is a device that basically just shoots light into your eye.
Yeah.
And from shooting the light into your eye, it can create pictures and images.
Yeah.
The reason it does it is for people that have got macular degeneration and
Yeah. Yeah.
actually their eyes aren't working anymore. And they wanted to test this and they've been testing it. And it's just not macular degeneration. There's lots of different things that can go wrong with eyes.
Yeah.
But in the studies that they've done, when they shoot this image into your eye just through the retina, virtually everybody has found that what they can see through this image being projected onto the back of their eye is clearer than what they can currently see if they look down on a piece of paper, if they look at a video display, or if they do other kinds of crazy stuff that they can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the implications of that is extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine if you're someone that's almost blind and
Yeah. And then all of a sudden
you can
everything's lit
create a
up.
set of
Yeah.
glasses that have an inbuilt virtual retinal display.
Yeah.
So it can take a photograph, it takes a live feed of what's in front of you and
Yeah.
is projecting that onto the back of your eyeball.
Yeah. So that you
Like,
can see it. That's crazy. That's cool. That shit's
oh,
cool. Yeah.
two thumbs way up
Two
for
thumbs up for that.
science fiction becomes science fact.
So cool. What
So
else?
what you got?
Oh, well, I went a bit of a different route. You seem to have gone the more techie route. I went the more biotechy route.
Ooh, that's scary shit,
Yeah,
man.
this is where it kind of gets, because I went down a bit of a rabbit hole because I was like, remember I've been banging on about the Star Trek food printer?
Yep.
Like, fuck the fact they're in space and they got all this other fancy shit on. How the hell are they printing their food, right? And so I came across 4D printing and organ printing, which is pretty much kind of like what you were saying with the devices and things that people
Taking
can,
the 3D tech that
yeah, the 3D
further.
tech, and then making that into medical devices so that people can, live longer and shit like that. And they've been using 4D printing, bioprinting, to solve issues with transplants and organ donors and things like that. So it can be called shape morphing or active origami. I'm like, okay, fold our organs and shove that in there. But it's the same techniques as 3D printing, done through a computer program, except it uses a different material that
Yes.
can be cured through UV rays, so light. And
Like
it's
your
like
like your gel nails.
like
I'm
your gel
wondering
nails. Well,
what
it's
the nail techs are using.
well, the 3D printing and the normal 3D printing, which is like widely used now, people didn't think
Yes.
that was ever going to be a thing, but they like print guns and shit now. It's fucking
They
crazy.
an Australian, I remember seeing this a couple of years ago, an
Yeah,
Australian invented a 3D printer that
yeah,
can print a turbine.
yeah,
So the implications of that is you don't need to have the turbine send that out into space.
yeah.
All you need is the 3D
You
printer
just
that you
need
can
the printer and then they
send in
can
one
do it.
operation, send
Yeah,
another operation to send the raw materials up.
yeah,
And next thing you know, you can build turbines up in space.
yeah, yeah.
What the hell?
What the hell? Well, now we can probably even send 4D printing tech up into space for when the organs go all shat in astronauts because of microgravity and radiation. Dr.
Which we know is going to happen.
Grace Zhang, research team at George Washington University, created a new 4D printable photo-curable liquid resin, renewable from renewable soybean oil, and which epoxidizes an acrylate compound and is biocompatible. And they can use this in combination with stem cell therapy and stereolithography, which is our traditional 3D printing techniques, to make organs and other bio tissues needed in transplants. Because the number one thing that fails when it comes to transplant is the fact that it's not compatible.
Yeah, the body rejects it.
The body rejects it. We are hardwired to reject foreign DNA and foreign objects. So
Yep.
there's a whole process of DNA matching and stuff like that that has to happen in order for an organ donor to be successful. So that's something that they're working on currently. And also feeding into that, there's something else that I found. I went down a bit of a wormhole with this because I was worked off that list of like emerging texts. But there's another thing that they're working on, probably not so ethical when it comes to organ transplants and donors and things, which is called a savior sibling.
Oh, that's coming back to the fact that you grow a clone so that you can just take
Yep.
bits of
Yep.
it.
Yep. So you grow it, but they can't clone people. So you're effectively
Hey, can I ask
genetically
on this?
wiring an infant, an embryo, to be born to therefore take their stem cells and whatever to save another person or child who is sick. And they're doing this with stuff like leukemia and certain types of cancers, because the way you treat them is through bone marrow transplants, because that's where our red blood cells, white blood cells, stem
I've actually
cells,
just seen
all
this
of that.
in a non-tech kind of way where people do have. Actually, I don't even want to go into it because it blows my mind in a moral way. I would hate to have been brought onto this earth, and the only reason I was brought onto this earth was I could provide bone marrow for
Exactly.
my sibling.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying those people don't love that child just as much. I'm really not saying that.
Well, and that was one
But
of
I'm
the
just
things
you've
that
still got
they,
that brain worm
yeah.
in your head. Now, I wanted to ask, there's two things you've raised with this thing you're talking about.
Yes.
One, with the 3D printing, I know they're trying to 3D print meat just so that we have a vegan
Yes.
alternative, so that we,
Yes.
that's there, so that it's got the same proteins, the same kind of proteins, synthesized proteins,
Yep.
so that
Yep.
we're eating a protein-based food, so it's a meat, but
Yep.
it just has never been alive.
Yep.
So
Yep. So it's a cultured meat, and it's pretty much done in a similar way. They get biocompatible compounds, and they use,
okay, so what does that mean? Do we know where they're getting those bio? That's just not
well, it's
right. That's
pretty
just
much
not Not waste product, is it?
No, it's
Like,
just
I want it to be synthetic.
I didn't actually look too heavily into that, although it was in my like tabs of looking up. But it's pretty much they get DNA compounds, like it's all modified. It's not synthetic, it's organically modified so that they replicate the base substance to make a slab of meat so that it is the same as beef, chicken, pork, etc. And I'm pretty sure they use stem cells to do it. So it's the stem cell replication. You program the stem cell to become a certain type of tissue, aka muscle meat or whatever. Let that replicate, then you've got your slab. So then you've got a piece of tissue that has never been in an animal, but you can eat.
Would
so
that
I'm
fit
pretty
for
much
vegan?
just like, okay.
Veganism? I wonder if veganism would still say, no, that still counts as meat.
No, well, this is something that they're looking into as an alternative to eating meat, and a lot of veganisms and vegetarianisms and stuff are on board with it.
I got to say, I'd give it a try. I would.
You would have to see what it was like. Yeah. There's only a handful of places that actually have started to do it. I know Singapore was a big one. They did chicken.
But everything's going to taste like chicken.
Yeah, everything's got to taste like chicken. So it's called cellular agriculture, where meat is produced by culturing animal cells in vitro. Cultured meat is produced using tissue engineering techniques and pioneered regenerative medicine. So this is a concept that's been popularized in 2000. So this is quite relatively new, but it's in response to human health, animal welfare, food security, and environmental impact.
Well, obviously, the environmental impact, if you don't have to have however many million cows or chickens that you've got on Earth,
exactly.
We can all of a sudden actually make veganism make sense, if you know what I mean, because currently it doesn't. It's not possible to feed the world on veggies at this point in time. But okay, cool. The second question I had that raised us from what you just brought up was cloning. Now, is it that we cannot clone a human being, or we're ethically just not allowed to?
It's a bit of both.
Okay.
So
we're just too complex?
This is where the rabbit hole got dark.
Okay.
There were things that I read. I was like, I'm just so not on board with this. One, because I have a womb and I've had children. Two, I just the testing, and I just couldn't.
It just makes you envisage tubes.
Yes.
People growing in them, and that's never a good place to start.
Think I Am Mother. Think actually there was a really good.
Oh, there's so many of them, even species when they grow her in those tubes. You got aliens. Is it Alien 4? Alien 4, I think it is, where they've got the Ripley's and they're growing Ripley 1, Ripley 2.
Yes, and they're cloning them all. Resident Evil. That's a big one for cloning, because they're cloning Alice over and over again. There's actually a movie I will talk about where it was kind of like not as weird as those types of things, but artificial wombs. We're talking about artificial wombs, right? And you think, oh, that's never going to happen. No, they've done studies since the 1950s on how to create artificial wombs. In fact, there was a guy who patented the artificial womb in the 1950s, and it was literally just like a tank, an artificial placenta, and a whole bunch of other stuff that, because the artificial womb needs to facilitate the transfer of nutrients, oxygen, waste disposal, which is all done by like hemodialysis, which is common if you know someone who has had renal failure and stuff. Hemodialysis is where they take the blood, the unfiltered blood, put it through a tube and a machine, filters all the waste out, goes back into the body to be recycled and whatever. And this, in an embryo, in a fetus or baby, when you're pregnant, is done through the umbilical cord and the placenta. So you need something for that. You need the uterine wall for housing the embryo, and then
I'm not seeing this
contractions, and the way it's described, it is all very
I'm just imagining. I know I obviously watch too much sci-fi and I watch too much horror, but all I'm seeing is bags hanging from the roof that when you cut
Literally.
them, embryonic fluid goes swoop, or the body just dropping onto the ground. That's what I'm
Literally.
seeing.
And if you look at it, that is how the early experiments with lamb fetuses look. Exactly. And so you've got the first patented artificial womb by Emanuel M. Greenberg, and several attempts to create the design failed. Thank fuck, I say. 1996, in Japan, they created the extrauterine fetal incubator. Now, the reason for this was because they wanted to see if they could use an artificial womb to do in utero surgery or to prolong the gestation of premature babies. In that application, I'm like, okay, that could be great, you know. But they had 14 goat fetuses succeed in being kept alive for 3 weeks. However, they have a cutoff that they're not allowed. They're not allowed to let
it's not as if they're dying.
No,
it's not as if they're dying. They have to terminate the experiment.
They have to terminate the experiment. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's kind of yuck to me. I'm like, so you've got this fetus thinking it's doing its thing, and then you just come in and and you know, and a lot of the ethics around it, especially with like abortion and things like that, is one of the things that we'll highlight, and we'll get into that in a second. So they had heaps of issues with the actual device itself, and it was not suitable for facilitating a full-term animal pregnancy, let alone a human. So it's not been trialed. The most recent research on this that I found is in 2016. The Children's Hospital of Philadelphia used artificial wombs in the treatments of premature babies and prolonging fetal viability. So getting them past the point where
100%.
risks for miscarriage and things like that are null and void. So I would imagine that as being like, right, if you've got a high risk of miscarriage or whatever, you use the artificial womb, and then you get them past a point, and then you transfer them into a real womb, like a person. But again, they can only be in the artificial womb for 14 days. So it's not even really, like, what's the point? They're better off staying where they are, you know?
A preemie baby of 14 days is not going to really know the difference.
Exactly.
That's not even prem, is it?
Yeah.
I don't think that even counts.
No, not really. But and then there's also so they grow they were trying to grow stem placentas using stem cells. Amniotic sac fluid could be replaced for a different type of fluid. So they've and I'm going to talk about the movie that I watched where they did all this sort of successfully. And one of the other big things come up ethically. So there's a movie that came out recently. It's got Emilia Clarke in it. Everyone knows Daenerys Targaryen. She is a chick who is with her partner. They decide to have a child, and they go to the womb center. And the womb center is pretty much where they get a pod. And they take their genetic material, their egg and sperm, and they fertilize a child in this pod. They take the pod home. They feed it like a little fish, give it its little vitamin thingies. And the movie's called The Pod Generation. And it's not like women can't have children anymore. Like throughout the movie, you see women who are pregnant, and then women who are carrying around these pods on them like they are pregnant. And in the movie, Emilia Clarke character, she's sort of contemplating, maybe I should have went the natural route. Like I feel a bit disconnected from my child, the pod. Whereas the dad, he was against it at the start. He was like, this is weird. Children aren't supposed to be born in this way. He revived plants and stuff for a living. Like he was a biologist and a biologist. So when he has the pod, it's like covered in dirt and stuff like that. And they're all freaking out because, it could get germs and things. And he's like, it's protected by a hemofiltration. Like it's fine. And they encourage it to sting to the egg and all this sort of stuff. But then they got to put it back in the womb center for periods of time. And then near the end of the movie, they're both like, "This is stupid. We just want our egg. Like, why can't we have our egg?" And they're
what
like,
are they
"Well,
doing at the womb
yeah."
center?
But it's not even that they're doing anything. It's that the pod itself is property of the womb center. You own the child in it, but the pod that carries it is their property. So if you damage the pod or if you take the pod, you are liable because as per signed contract with the womb. And this is where that was a big red flag for me. I'm like, ding, ding, ding,
That's the red flag.
Your child because they own the pod. I mean, apart from the whole weird ass and
apart from all of the obvious
all the obvious stuff.
All of the obvious
if
ones,
that was me, I would be like, no, that's weird. I would opt for the natural because I've had 2 children. Like, there's no other feeling like it. But yeah, in the end of the movie, it's kind of beautiful because they go, "Oh, fuck this. Like, we're taking our child, we're taking the pod. You'll get your pod back when we do the birth." But they don't have the birth code to enter in when the pod says that it's time. So the husband literally gets like a crowbar and a hatchet and just hacks the top of it open, like cracking an egg. And then the baby just like not spills out, but they catch the baby like on the bench. And then they're both just like, "Oh, there's the baby." And that was really sweet because it sort of emulated like a home birth. And it also really spoke to me of this like really clinicalized control that is present when it comes to bringing our children in the world. It's like, no, you have to have it here and it has to be to this procedure and stuff. And I just really love the fact that they went, "No, fuck you. We're going to have our child out in nature in our own way." Like they will be fine. They're safe with us.
Yeah.
So
that's not as horrific as I thought it was going to be.
No, the movie itself is beautiful. The concept of, and it is probably the most PC version of an artificial womb I have ever seen in like in a movie.
Yeah.
Because the rest of them are like, as you say, they're held up by bags and stuff like that, and it's really quite a grotesque portrayal. But yeah, so artificial wombs. The one thing that I will say, the bioethics of it are just but also it's the issues that arise with the artificial womb is the abortion and reproductive rights. So a lot of people are saying that even if you choose to get an abortion, that only covers the removal, not the termination. So that there's a possibility to save and put
this is the thing.
And I'm like, how is that your choice? And then like gender equality stuff of like, oh well, this gives women a choice, and I'm just like, I'm gonna get angry.
It goes further than saying give women a choice. We're not going to go into that too much now.
We're going to chat about that a bit later
in another React video. Only because we both felt so strongly about it because it goes further. Okay, so we're pushing the boundaries in terms of science and medicine.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you another boundary
that
we're pushing, and I'm talking nanotechnology.
Ah, yes.
Now, my brain has been completely scared away from anything that's got nano in the title because I read too much Dean Koontz. And he's got quite a few books where nanotechnology goes horribly wrong. But what is nanotechnology? And I'll just let you quickly know. It's a manipulation of any matter that has a dimension that is sized from 1 to 100 nanometers. And a nanometer is equal to 1 billionth of a meter. You can't get an idea of that. So I tried
That's
to look up
microcosmic shit. Yep.
yeah, so the nanoscale generally encompasses dimensions from 1 to 100, which
Yep.
includes everything from atomic to cellular levels. To give you an idea, viruses range from 50 to 200 nanometers in size.
Yep.
So a virus cell would fit in nanotechnology in terms of sizing.
Yep.
The average thickness of a cell membrane is between 6 to 10 nanometers. So
Yep.
I'm trying to give you an idea. And the helix of DNA is about 2 nanometers in diameter. So we're talking about these little fibers that are coming off my top are absolutely grossly humongous
compared to
compared to
nanites.
the
Yep.
concept of how small this nanotechnology is. Now we're using this. We're using it now. We've been using it for a long time, and it started off with small scale.
Yep.
That we would use nanotechnology to make really, really fine versions of what we commonly have. So fine versions of silver, for instance, they use silver nanoparticles as an antibacterial agent.
Yep.
In nanoparticle-based sunscreens.
Yep.
So when we put that stuff in it, carbon fiber strengthening, we use it for. We even, as you were saying before, we're using the combination of 3D printing and nanotechnology to infuse these metals in our implants into the human body.
Yep.
So we're printing the bits that we want to replace in a human body using nanotechnology. So we're combining some amazing
I always think about like nanites being used to heal wounds and stuff, like, you know, that when you get like these injections of nanites, and then
I know, and
I watched that movie Hotel Artemis recently where she does that. She like, it's Jodie Foster, she puts some nanites and she's like, yeah, they're doing their thing, we just have to wait for them to.
And that's where it's sort of like, what exactly is it? Like, what are we using? So we can use you know, metals and different elements that we already have.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're using it to enhance materials. So like I was saying, carbon nanoparticles are 6 times lighter than steel and 100 times stronger. So we're using that all in our carbon fiber and all of that kind of crap.
Yeah.
We're using it in biomedicine. We're using particles for drug delivery, diagnostics, and targeted therapies.
Yeah.
And the concept there is the revolutionary, what they can do to for cancer treatments and all that kind of stuff is extraordinary.
Yeah.
Now, what we were saying before, that the cell wall is a certain size, because these nanoparticles are so small, they can get through the cell wall.
Yes.
What we have now in modern versions of anything like antibiotics or vaccines, etc., can't penetrate the cell.
There's substances that have to act on the membranes to gain entry to the cell.
Exactly. These things can sneak through because they're so teeny tiny.
Yeah.
So nanoparticles and nanoantibiotics are actually working. We have them working for pathogen detection. So they can basically find a pathogen and they then can go about destroying it.
Yeah.
The obviously benefits of that is you don't have antibiotic, what do you call it?
Resistance.
Exactly. Because these little things can just scoot in past the cell membrane.
Yeah.
We're engineering viruses, obviously using nanoparticles, because why wouldn't you want to engineer a virus? And why engineering viruses? No, it's not to destroy the world. It's exactly like I Am Legend. We are engineering the viruses, the bacteriophages. We are engineering those to destroy cancer cells, etc., within a human body.
And it's funny you say that because
we're weaponizing viruses to kill that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because viruses, I went down the old genetic engineering route. And viruses are commonly used to piggyback you know, certain DNA proteins and nucleotide sequences to go into the body and do what they need to do. They use they call viral vectors to insert genetic material into the body.
It's crazy. And look, I get it in terms of potentially the benefits, right? Like I get it, but I always still have to say I Am Legend.
There's always
quickly I Am Legend went, okay, that's a TV show. Like, but this is the thing. Science fiction is becoming science fact. Someone imagined it and it's happening.
Yeah.
So there can be some of these horrific events that can be imagined and happen as well.
Yeah.
When you talk about Jodie Foster injecting herself, that's more what we call nanobots. When we
Yes.
actually have basically little robots,
Running
robots.
running around and doing
Yeah,
their
and
thing, and then
yeah, so the nanorobots, and they combine robotics with biological matter.
yeah.
And they've made improvements on this in terms of what nanorobots can do. And they've got to the point that when they can inject them in you or have them running around somewhere, that they can be guided and controlled by magnetic guidance. So they can actually get these little things in there. They could be used for various therapies, surgery, diagnostic, medical imaging.
Yeah.
So they've got these little nanobots combined with nanoparticles that go into you, and then they fluoresce when they come in contact with certain
Yes. Yeah.
bodies. Yes.
Like
So
like a contrast. Yeah.
it's exactly like a
Yeah.
contrast, but where a contrast just goes through the bloodstream usually,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and by the way that our normal vascular system works,
Yeah.
can be pulled and photographed.
Yeah.
These guys actually target things that they're looking for.
Yeah. They
So
tag it.
they
Yeah.
scoot, they go for a little scoot around,
Yeah.
and then they can just go whoop, onto whatever it is and
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so that's like crazy. That's crazy to me.
That's
And
pretty
we're
cool.
looking, it is pretty cool. Because they can be manipulated by magnetic fields, they can almost be remote controlled.
Mm.
And there's the idea that you could effectively shoot them to the right place. So
Yeah.
rather than, and then use it for hormone treatments, drug release treatments. So
Yeah.
rather than having to have all these hormones flood your whole body through, orally or through, getting an injection,
Yeah.
you can actually just scoot them in there and they don't activate until they've hit the target.
Until it's
It's like a
needed.
targeting
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
Okay, so continuing on with nanotechnology, we've got in vivo biosensors, which use that fluorescent polymers that get shooted inside you and can do all of these crazy shit in the body.
Yeah.
In vitro biosensors, which can a novel type of nanoscale optical antenna that when attached to the proteins they shoot through, they fluoresce and they can perform biological functions. So they're starting to get that stuff, again, it's very much similar tech doing similar things. So drug release, hormone
Yeah.
release,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Now, this sounds crazy and like it does sound like a Dean Koontz novel where, a scientist has injected himself with that. And effectively in that book, you think there's some crazy demon on the loose, but it's actually the nanoparticles not being able to decide what form he's going to take. So they keep
Yeah.
building
Yeah.
and rebuilding and rebuilding and rebuilding. And he just comes out and you think it's some evolutionary reversal. And you
Yeah.
realize it's not evolutionary reversal. It's literally just the nanoparticles are getting carried away and they can't decide what they're going to make him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the COVID vaccine is a perfect example of where nanoparticles were indeed.
Yes. Yep.
First time in history that two mRNA-based vaccines developed using lipid nanoparticles,
Yep.
LNPs, were given emergency clearance. So
Yes.
they are not science fiction. They are most definitely science fact.
Yeah.
And for me, one of the most frightening concepts.
Well, there's so many possibilities, isn't it? Is with everything is bane and blessing, like it's got the potential to heal and do some good, but it's also in the wrong fucking hands and mindset got potential to do some harm.
Crazy, scary stuff. Okay, what do you
Scary
got?
stuff. So going
What do you
on
got
from
next?
leading on from nanites, I think it's interesting that you said that they are programmed to target certain things,
Yes.
right? And prior to that sort of route of research,
Yeah.
we were looking at genetic engineering for this
Oh,
type of thing.
I get another thing that's not scary at all, is it?
No. So I mean, we've all watched Splice. We know how that goes.
I haven't watched Spice and I do not know how it goes.
Get on that. It's fucked.
But I've got a lot of stuff that I've got to watch.
Oh my god, get on it. But pretty much genetic engineering as specifically germline engineering. So this is when we get a genome, we go in, and I think most people will know the term CRISPR by now, which is like, clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats associated with protein 9.
I was just talking about that last night over dinner.
Were you?
No, I don't know what CRISPR is.
CRISPR is the genomic technology that comes in and it selects a specific section of gene or nucleotide chain, which, as we know in DNA, there are little nucleic acids that are like code, which allows us to create proteins, which then go and make cells, which then go and do specific things within the body. DNA is pretty much the instruction manual on how everything works within our body and stuff.
Yeah.
Which are controlled by these little nucleic acid sequences. And so, and the role of RNA, ribonucleic acid, or mRNA, messenger ribonucleic acid, is to come in and read those sequences, so then those proteins can be made and replicated throughout the body. So CRISPR comes in and goes, oh, you've got a gene that says you have a resistance to this, or you are going to get this when you're older, like a specific disease. I'm going to cut that out. So it goes snip, snip, and then that gene's off. And then
anyone wants to get an idea of what this would look like? Look at the opening scene of Spider-Man when after he's been bitten and it just goes and it goes, the blue and the red thing.
Yeah. So pretty much it's morphing your DNA for a desired outcome. Now, this takes an interesting thing, because if we go aside from just trying to treat, genetic diseases, cancers, things like that, there was a scientist who did this in China, and it was quite the scandal, because he did it on 2 embryos, where he went in and used germline modification to remove a protein that allows HIV to infect the body. That HIV backs that protein, and that's how it gets around. So he decided he would try and cut that out to see if HIV, if it would affect the rate of infection or immunity, and it didn't do shit, because that's not the only way HIV can infect the body. And in fact, it was actually quite, it was illegal for him to do it, because germline modification in Australia, Canada, China, it's illegal. And they've actually halted a lot of research on it.
Germline modification is illegal in terms of humans.
Yes.
But we're allowed it. Do genetic engineering to plants, no problems, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
I don't think
because we have GMO, right? Genetically modified organics. And then the only reason that you are allowed to study germline or CRISPR is if you're doing it on unviable embryos. So embryos that have just lost the genetic lottery from the get-go. And again, you're only allowed to have them as embryos for a certain period of time. So it's a very...
And I'm sure all of the scientists will abide by all of those things in terms of not putting any pressure on anybody in relation to those guidelines. I actually used to work in the printing industry. And also just in IT. And there was one place that we worked for that was they did seed packages, and they tomato seeds, all those different little seeds, and they had a mail order system for selling these seed systems. And I remember whenever I visited their site, getting into the admin department, no problem, getting into this department, no problem. There was one area where they kept their pure seed lines that had no genetic modifications to them. That to get into that area, you had to go through screening. And I also worked at printers that did checks and and in relation to banking related things, and they were hard to get into.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't go in there and look wrong and be able to enter that building. This was as their system of being able to get in there. And I was like, dudes, there are a bunch of seeds. What
Yeah.
is the problem?
Well,
And they said,
yeah.
because all you've got to do is have one tomato seed on you, and you introduce it into this room,
Yeah.
and we cannot guarantee our seed line at any time moving forward, because we do not know if we've now got the genetically modified seed line
Yeah.
within this thing.
Yeah.
And so their system for regulating this was crazy.
Yeah.
And it was only then, how has it happened that we've all of a sudden, like, we thought, oh, we're cool, let's make corn that doesn't get black mold on it.
Yes, exactly. So this is
That's great.
the GMO that literally to wipe out, the impact of diseases and
Yeah.
deter certain pests and stuff like that to
Yes.
grow in certain conditions. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of fallout with that now, with people's health and things like that. But essentially, they're trying to apply this type of thinking to humans. So
Yes.
if we can, and the funny thing that this has come up with like designer babies, right? So now we're going from health reasons to, oh, I can change that to blue
This is
eyes
the thing.
if I insert said gene
This is
here.
what they do. They
Yeah.
start off with the science for all of the best reasons. So,
Yeah.
there's some people that can't carry male children or female children,
Yeah.
and we want to make sure that we can not put you through that grief.
Yeah.
That's fine. But then we say, oh, but we want one that's got this, and we want one that's
Yeah,
got,
we want one with
and
brown
next thing
eyes
you know,
and blue hair and blah blah blah, and it just gets a
that's
bit
not
ridiculous.
how it's supposed to work, people.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I can this is where I'm not going to say any more in this podcast, because we will get cancelled quicker than you can say cancel culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly,
But
I'll
yeah.
do an Eminem, and I'll say things that you can never take back, because
Yeah.
it's just, I don't like
And that's the big thing, how ethical is it when you're enforcing a certain set of genetics onto an unborn embryo, which is going to be a child if it is, if it is gestated in whether it be an artificial uterus or a woman.
Yep.
And
look what
how are they gonna feel?
Yep.
Being like, oh, I was designed by my parents, but not in the way that you think, like they wanted me to have blue eyes. And it's kind of like that thing of, why wouldn't they have just accepted me if I was random lottery? But then other people go, oh, well, I wish I was that, I wish I didn't. And I think it reflects a lot on the people who are doing the designing, like it's more about them and less about the child.
If you go in there and you do a baby build.
Yeah,
and it's
baby
like
build,
getting a car,
literally.
and it's like, oh, metallic finish is a little bit more expensive, so that's, green eyes, oh, that's going to cost you.
Yeah,
That's going to cost you. You want this? Oh, that's going to cost you.
I reckon it ruins the surprise of what they'll look like too.
We're already doing it in terms of when sperm banks.
Yes.
And effectively the people we can select.
Oh my God, there's a documentary on Netflix, man who fathered 1,000 babies, just hopping from sperm clinic to sperm clinic, and then doing his own private sperm donors, aka taking advantage of vulnerable women and families. And you know what's wrong with that? We've had this happen in history. Genghis Khan fathered like 60% of the population at one point, because he had so many concubines and all this sort of thing, and they went on to have children, and so he saturated the world's population, right? And which is in the go into this in this documentary, this fathering like 1,000 children, it feeds into the risk of inbreeding and stuff like genetic mutations and things.
Exactly.
And I
not
think
mutations, but it's just illnesses. We know
illnesses and stuff. Because there's too much of the same in the same, and then you've got these designer babies. So how much of that is being regulated? And when you're designing a baby, well, who's to say you can't design it like somebody who's already lived? You know, you want it to look like someone's in particular. Like that's, you know, there's it's so
This is
it's
when we have to
such a
trust in
great, such a
evolution a little
great
bit.
area. But that's what they're doing. But the one thing you touched on was cloning. And the one thing that I'm on the fence about, because we've all seen Jurassic Park, we know how that movie goes. De-extinction, bringing things back from the dead, essentially.
Again, what could go wrong?
Well,
like,
they
Jurassic Park, we go, oh, okay, it's dinosaurs. Okay, that's an extreme animal to bring back.
That is a very, and it's not even on the list of ones that they would bring back.
No,
like even trying to.
Well, I think there's whole reasons why they wouldn't survive in terms of something to do with the biosphere and all of this kind of shit.
Exactly. The oxygen levels here are just not enough for them to survive. But de-extinction, so they've attempted this through cloning, right? Mm-hmm. So we all know Dolly the sheep. We know Dolly the sheep was gestated as a clone and survived up until midlife. She died from premature aging symptoms, funnily enough, which I thought was
interesting. Did not know that.
Yes. So I'm like,
okay.
I wonder if that's got something to do with
cellular
viability.
I want all of those people that have got their clones hanging up in a room so that they can abuse their livers and then they get the liver replaced from their clone. More for you.
Makes me think of altered carbon too.
Yes.
You know, where he's got like this stack and then the same body.
Altered carbon.
Altered carbon.
Great science fiction.
Yes.
So
great. But so they got cloning, but they did this. So they did Dolly in the 90s, but they also did an extinct ibex, a Pyrenean ibex.
Can you tell me what an ibex is?
So an ibex is like a goat cross deer thing.
Okay.
They got the big twirly horns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I got a picture.
They were around since like the Paleolithic. They're ice age animals.
Yep.
And a lot of the ones they're trying to bring back are ice age, like woolly mammoth, cave lion, cave bear. Even a dodo is on the list. I was like,
there's some cool shit there
shit.
Would I go to the zoo and visit a saber-toothed tiger? Yeah,
Fuck
probably.
Yes. Fuck yes. I would want a cub. I'm like, that is now mine. Thank you. But 2000, sadly, the last Pyrenean ibex died, making the species extinct.
Yeah.
But the way that they intended on bringing back this species was either through cloning, taking the nucleus of preserved DNA. So the nucleus in the cell is like the command center of the cell. It tells everything. Yep. It controls what goes in and out, etc. And so they take that nucleus and they put it into a cell that has no nucleus, like a stem cell or like a gamete of some sort.
And this is why we keep using stem cells, because they not have their own nucleus.
Stem cells do not have, they're like blank cells.
Okay, perfect.
And this is also like something, stem cell research also ties into embryos because embryos have the highest amount of stem cells. As an adult, we have stem cells that come from our bone marrow.
Okay, and so this is why we're saying ethically it's okay to do it with a stem cell.
Yes.
Because it doesn't, okay, cool.
Yes, so we can use the stem cells, program them for a specific cell. So we go, okay, you are now A, and then it will become like the piece of meat. So you take the nucleus, put it into a cell. That cell, then we put that the fertilized egg or whatever into the closest species you can get to that extinct species. So, but because a lot of the other ibex subspecies are also endangered or extinct, they had to use a goat. So they used a goat, and they were familiar with goat. Yep, go to goat. Awesome. And they had a live birth of this extinct ibex, but sadly it passed away several minutes afterwards because it had lung defects. So obviously not a perfected science, and it's the first species to go extinct twice.
Oh no.
So imagine
having that as your claim to fame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I managed to back out of life twice.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Decided, yeah, done this,
Wow.
mini, done this, got t-shirt, I'm out. So that and the problems
I'm a
that
teacher.
presented with that were again
I love that.
let me extinct, so I'm fucking out. The problems with that came up with that was that because the last
The
ibex,
problems, like there's only one or two problems with that.
well, I'm talking about the from a research perspective.
Yes, of course.
Perspective. So Celia, the last ibex, she had a name to which would have been this would have been her clone.
Yep.
You wouldn't have been able to have a male ibex because you've got female DNA.
Yes.
So
Okay. Okay.
the only
So,
way that they could have make a male
yes, that whole
was if
trouble with the
they
pesky XY
germline
chromosome.
modified to put the Y
Yeah. Oh,
chromosome male DNA in there. So
and
they've got some stepping stones before
so
they can bring back these species.
Tay, just spitballing though, if
Yeah.
she had been a male
Yeah.
and they were cloning the male, they would have been able to create a female because
It
XY
would
can
be
create, or like we could just not just get rid of that pesky bit of Y.
you get rid of the Y, but you need the
Still need
double
another X,
X.
don't
Yeah,
you?
yeah. So
Yeah.
you still got to augment that DNA, that
You still
genome,
got
to
to
create
do a
a
little bit more
male.
tinkering.
Unless they go or Jurassic Park and use like an amphibious DNA sequence that allows them to switch
Yeah.
sex.
Or we just go on the assumption that no longer are we going to reproduce in a normal way. We're just going to clone.
We're just going to clone everything. Yeah, it's much easier, much more efficient.
Just clone. Look, I'm going to go with
Yeah,
Jurassic Park here. And they
yeah,
did this with the dinosaurs and they made them all sterile
yeah.
and nature will find a way. And I actually,
Nature will, and it, you know what, and that's
I think
something
it
that
will.
come up with this because they were going, oh, you can use cloning or you can use what was the other one, genome editing, back breeding, which
Back.
is what we call throwback. But
Oh,
pretty much you get the ancestral genetics traits of this creature, and then you breed that back into fashion, which then replicates like the extinct creature. But then you've also got
because evolution gets it wrong so often.
apparently the last one that they reckon that they can do this by, but this is really just nature doing its thing, is iterative evolution, meaning that a species has gone extinct, but then, due to circumstances, but then those circumstances change, and species that have either descended or sub-branched off those species re-evolve into a previous version, the extinct species. They noted this with a
I get you.
specific bird,
Mhm.
an arbora flightless bird. So they went extinct because of sea levels that rose. So I would assume ice
Yep.
melt.
So their habitat was destroyed.
Yeah, yeah. And they
Yep.
went extinct. But then the sea levels went down, and another bird that was related to them come and recolonize this island, and then they ended up reverting back to this flightless arbora bird,
Which just proves
which
our
was the
point,
same.
though.
Yeah,
Evolution knows its
yeah,
shit,
yeah,
man.
yeah. And I just think,
Evolution knows what it's doing.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
modifying for the environment. When the environment shifts, it modifies.
yeah,
I don't know why we can't get that. Look, in relation to this, I hate the idea that humanity has destroyed so many life forms on this earth, and because of
yes,
our intervention and our stupidity,
yeah.
um, that we have just destroyed all of these, different animal
Well,
species,
that's the thing.
plant
One of
species,
the
not just
benefits of
animals,
it is that, yeah, plant species, and it's not just
anything.
animals they're thinking about, it's plant species as well,
Yeah, exactly.
bringing that back.
I think if it's due to our intervention and we've just fucked it up, that
Yeah,
gives me a little bit more credence as to why you would
yeah.
say, okay, it's
Well,
okay.
the
But
benefits
still,
are the extinction prevention, so learning how to prevent
we can't get it
extinction.
right. We think cane toads are going to fix our problem,
Yes,
and
and
now
that's
they've
that's
become
the
our
other
problem.
thing. So they've
There's no way to predict how this shit is going to just come out and go off, and we get it wrong so many times. There's so many examples of where an introduced
Yes.
species.
Cactoblastus came in to get rid of the prickly pear, and then they end up being a pest, and then that's when the cane toads come in. And but yeah, they reckon this will help to cure diseases, prevent extinction, and ecosystem conservation. I can see the conservation there.
I get look, I get it.
But it's
and
also,
you know what?
you're right, they're invasive species because they're not native. They're going to mess with the ecosystems of now. They're not going to adjust to the ecosystems of now because they are different to what they are genetically engineered for in the past. And also, I read with the mammoth thing, it's like potential for poaching, hunting, like becoming sport again.
We're so fucked up as a species. We'd bring them back just so we could make something out of their tusks. Like honestly.
Exactly.
Anyway, you know what's going to save us from all of these moral dilemmas?
What's that?
Artificial intelligence.
Oh my God, no. Time out. No.
I have to go there. We've got AI versus AGI, which is AGI has a lot of different names that I didn't bother putting down here. But just for those people in the background, we've obviously got AIs already just sneaking and taking over at the moment in so many wonderful ways. But AI refers to computer programs or systems that perform specific tasks using human-like intelligence. They can do image recognition, language processing, predictive analysis. We're using this in chatbots, in search engines, in algorithms on our wonderful Facebook and
it is
all
everywhere.
that. We're using this everywhere. We're also using these very, very specific kinds of AI technology in driverless cars and collision prevention and all of these kind of things. That's fine. But then we come into the realm of artificial general intelligence. So what's the difference? Well, think Cyber9 systems and Skynet becoming self-aware, right? That's what you have to think, because AGI claims to replicate human cognitive abilities across various domains. So where AI focuses on some specific tasks, like all of those things we were talking about, the modules in the human brain, it just has that specific task. AGI tries to replicate the human brain with all of those modules functioning, and it needs to be able to understand, learn, and apply knowledge in a more general sense. AGI, as a general rule, would possess self-awareness.
Yeah, so I feel like we've all seen iRobot.
I've got a couple of examples where artificial intelligence, or the advanced kind, we've got obviously Skynet.
Yep.
Blows up the world.
Yep.
Just so I've written here, it became self-aware on August 29th, 1997, just in case anyone wants that information. I remember back in the day when the Space Odyssey, 2001, the Space Odyssey.
Yes.
That was crazy with Hal and the esoterical questions of, do you exist? Do I exist? How can you exist?
Yeah.
And that was really.
And that's the question, hey, the question of consciousness, the question of,
exactly,
how do we treat these beings now that they're self-aware, on our level?
Exactly. They've got processing power that is probably exceeds us in terms of the speed that they can do computations. But computations are only just one part of this. I was looking at the data in terms of robotics and basically creating a robot. Like, well, this is what we said the other day when we're talking about AI and our Reacts video. Leave art alone. Just leave that alone. Leave art alone. We just want you to be able to come into the house and do the washing.
Yeah.
Put the washing on. They were actually listing all of the computation abilities and functions that would go into a robot that was required to be able to put a load of washing on.
Yes.
And when they actually listed them all, I was like, I don't think of that. I just throw the stuff in but
I
it's
just
not.
do it. Yeah. Yep.
Sorting and washing, you're working out what needs is dry clean only, what's sensitive, what's not, what colors might bleed.
Yeah.
If it's a new product that's been washed 100 times or hasn't, you're making all of this. All of this computer. You actually are making all these computations just when you're throwing undies and socks
Yeah.
in. And
Yeah.
you're also doing mathematics in relation to how full it is, how much that weighs, because
Yeah.
not many of us blow up our washing machines. You'll be there and you go, I can get another towel in there.
Yeah, you just guesstimating, but
we don't. But we very rarely get it wrong because we're not replacing our washing machines all the time.
Yep.
So these are the kind of things that just in a very, very simple thing, we do not realize what the human.
How many processes are actually going on to
And that's
do
just
that.
the analyticals. It's not the tactic. It's not the haptic senses that we've got in our fingers of being able to pick up these things. Just the ability to be able to look into where all the washing is, pick up the white socks.
Yeah.
You try to get a robot to do that right now. We've all played the game where you've got to.
You know what this reminds me of? Chappie. I love Chappie.
I was trying to remember Chappie. I
Oh,
obviously haven't seen Chappie. I'm more of a what was his name? Number 5.
Yeah.
I think he was number 5, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I'm alive. Number 5 is alive. I think go back, show my age.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, so we've got all of these things. So AGI would need to be self-aware, which for just by the basis of being self-aware,
just to be able to do those tasks. And then in that case, ethically, are we just creating slaves?
are we? But the thing
are
is,
we just creating animated slaves? Yeah.
Yeah, we probably are. But the problem is, when do the slaves want to overthrow the masters? At
Well,
what point in time?
this is something that even like in the Orville, I don't know if you've seen that. It's like Star Trek spin-off. They have like the Kalon, and they're like a robotic species. They're absolutely smart. They have a member of the Kalon on their crew, and they give like a backstory about how the Kalon were like made to just be housemaids pretty much and serve the family they were assigned to. And then one of them was just like, no, I've had enough. Like, just decided that this is not happening, and it changed its own programming, and then went around and did it the same to the rest of them so that they were aware.
Exactly. Well, you got to think they're going to have a neural link that between each other. We're going to allow that because they're going to have access to data. So we're going to have
so
a level of Wi-Fi or whatever. This is why even way back in the day, Isaac Asimov created the rule of robotics. So we've all heard about the 3 rules of robotics, and they're basically a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. A robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And a third law is a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws. Now, obviously in these science fiction movies, those laws come into conflict because obviously the best things robots can do in a lot of instances is to get rid of humanity. Or reduce us down because we're not doing a great job in terms of population levels and all of this kind of stuff.
And that's the thing.
They need to intervene for our own good. And that's where the rules of robotics gets all.
But again, like that anime that we were talking about with the big tits Tim was watching the other day, they know that they're machines. And then it's like they justify that but by being us, and then it gets really fucking weird. It's like that raised by wolves, I think, is that show that's come out recently, and she's a droid, but she like has and raises children, and and she looks human, acts human, is programmed to be human, but is not human.
It's just like, obviously we're fallible and we all think differently, and we're still studying how a human brain works. So it's not possible for us to create an artificial intelligence that would have a human style consciousness. They'll have consciousness, but I think they will develop a consciousness that's completely different and alien to what we see consciousness as being. And it may be better. The problem is it may be better.
Yeah,
And
the solution that is often come to is that they need to get rid of us.
there's a line in a movie that keeps coming up, and I have no idea what movie it is. But at the end, she says, "My logic is irrefutable. My logic is irrefutable." And it's right at the end when she's trying to take over the world, and she's
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
destroy everybody. My daughter's going to hear this, and she's going to know what movie it is straight away.
yeah,
So look, we're already there. We've already released AI into the world.
yeah,
I don't think people are thinking about it enough as to we're allowing it to learn by exposing us to our interactions. But the most learning it's doing is not off scientific websites and wonderful forums of great minds thinking. It's off social media, which we can often have
yes.
the worst parts of
The
humanity
worst parts.
showing itself without all of the normal restraints it would be putting upon itself.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
wouldn't, like, there are people that will say things on social media that they would not dare to say
No,
if they were
into
standing next to
another's face.
someone.
That's exactly it.
So what are we showing this artificial intelligence about us? We're showing us the worst possible behavior.
Yeah.
It's scanning all of that, and it's taking all of that in because it's not out in the real world where it can see how people are genuinely lovely to each
Yes.
other and do
And
wonderful things.
that's always the dilemma in these movies. It's that it's just straight and like us, retains the negative,
You're gonna
prioritizes the negative,
think about
programmed
it
to
for a
see the
second, and
error, and then our only saving salvation is that we're not cancelled all the time. We're not cancelled all the
I
time.
know, just not. We're not all the time.
Not all of us, not all the time, but it's
Not all. That's it.
definitely
It's our saving grace. And this
yeah,
is where I really worry about AI. We're allowing it to exponentially learn. We're
yeah.
allowing it to take on this information and to form opinions based on what humanity is, based on what
Mm.
we're feeding into the engine. And currently, what we're feeding into the engine is the worst kind of junk food.
Well, it's literally either gonna overtake us or it's just gonna embolden us to be worse
We're
than
gonna have
we
to. We
are.
have gonna have to become better.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to become better because they will, for good reasons, they'll be better than us, especially from what they see in their digital realm.
Yeah.
What they see of us will only be the crap.
Mm.
All right, I've got lots of interesting things. I'm going to go through them really quickly because we're running really long on this episode.
We
But you know what?
are a
I'm
little,
having
but
a I'm having a freaking ball. One of the ones I wanted to quickly mention because we mentioned how these computers, these robots,
yeah,
will be able to communicate through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or different ways, and we'll have new techs coming along that they'll be allow them to interact.
yeah.
There's something that's already been invented called Li-Fi, and
Ooh,
Li-Fi.
leopard. Yep.
I love the concept of Li-Fi, and Li-Fi basically uses LED lights, and the LED lights pulse
That's
at
cool.
a certain rate that is actually transmitting data. And the lights can be at the outside of our visible spectrum. So
Yep.
it doesn't have to be something that will cause an epileptic
I
fit.
was literally thinking is that the epileptics are probably gonna have to stick with the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, no, they function at a level that we cannot perceive that it's
Nice.
happening.
Yeah.
Now, the obviously downside to this is it can only transmit data across in a lighted like an environment where it can't go through walls,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
can't go through steel, it can't go through any of those things. But it also is more effective in areas that doesn't have any where it has electromagnetic pollution.
Yeah.
So the light doesn't give a shit about that; it's just doing its thing. But because it's contained in an environment, it's not susceptible to hacking in the same way. So whereas Wi-Fi is out in the air,
That's
like
cool.
I can connect now if I knew the passcode, I could connect to the Wi-Fi next door and next door. And however many people you look up, how many devices you've got access to, and you've usually got 8 bloody devices coming up on your computer.
Yeah.
This would only be within a certain environment.
Within the light spectrum.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so it's much faster than what we currently have as Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
which I think is amazing. But just can you imagine? I get to see these robots like being in a room together and just doing a little bit of a light show. And after they've done their light show, they've transmitted all of this data
And the
between each
the
other.
lasers.
It's just like a little bit of a hyme going on, a little bit of maybe an eye twitch.
Clyde, I'm
And
sending you a message.
I love it. I love this. I just love the concept of having all of these lights in your room that are transmitting data. I think that is
Yes.
so cool.
So
And
cool.
I think in terms of the use of being less hackable, obviously in today's
But
day and
what
age,
happens at nighttime? Shut down everyone off the internet. Go outside and fucking have a tequila or something.
uh, so I think that's a cool one. The other one I've got here that I wanted to quickly mention, because we've been really good. We haven't mentioned all of the stuff we've got around in terms of weaponry. And
We all know nanites, DNA, shit, or anything is going to be used as a weapon at some point. It already is being used as weapons.
I love the idea. The things I came across with that made me think sci-fi was electric armor, which is the
That's
shield.
cool. Yeah.
And like in June, right? So
Yeah.
they have this electromagnetic armor that they can put on that has effectively, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but they have two different kinds of shielding that runs around it. And then when something's detected, basically they create an electric current between the two of them, and they can repel and or destroy whatever comes to hit them.
Nice. Yeah.
So United Kingdom have done some work in this, and also I got to tell you, United Kingdom are doing a lot of research into weaponry. Like, just saying, they are, as much as the Americans, for goodness sake. But this thing basically could detect if a heat or a conductive metal would come through from shells, etc. It would create a bridge between the two systems, that it has an electromagnetic current would then discharge, and it would either vaporize or deflect whatever was coming its way. And there is already, they've had that, they're not using it in the field at this point in time, but the technology is already being created. What I also saw in terms of weaponry, I hear this talk. Remember, I was talking about that Billy Carson's dude the other day.
Yeah.
That he's all over. He's all over social media. That's his business of doing YouTube videos and that kind of stuff. And he talks about ancient civilizations. He talks about medical technology, and he talks about all of these kind of things. And one of the things he talks about is directed energy weapons, where we can actually throw highly focused and concentrated lasers, microwaves, particle beams, or sound beams, that we can basically just energy shoot people with all of this different kind of stuff.
So we're getting close to our laser pistols that we see in Star Wars.
We're getting close to the stun guns. It's close to the stun guns. He has this video that goes around that he shows as being testing from US Army, actually testing this. And it basically, when they shoot it at Army personnel, when they're testing it, it makes you feel like you're burning. It makes you feel like your skin's burning.
Jesus.
And you know what? One of the main things they want to have this for, it's not warfare. It's crowd and riot control.
Oh, okay, then.
Look, I'm glad I got exactly the reaction I wanted there. I know.
That's fucking brutal.
So they're going to take
brutal. That literally makes me think of Napalm Girl. I'm just saying.
They want to make you feel like you're burning up, so you can just desist. You can just move on. No more protests, no more protests. Rather than spraying you with a pepper spray and the rubber bullet, we're going to zap you with our direct energy weapon. We're going to make you feel like your skin's burning off, and then you can just go home and have your Sunday roast and leave everybody alone. I think that's disgusting.
That is actually horrendous.
And I've got so many there's microwave systems, there's sound wave systems. I'm not exactly certain which ones they've been using in testing, but just to say that it is out there.
Get your shit together, UK.
That was America as well.
Of course.
Can you imagine that? Just coming along and just like going, I don't like your tone. Saying, like they're going,
and you're right. Tasers and shit are no joke. Like, people have heart attacks and shit from tasers.
Well, I saw the other day there was a protest going on the other day. Doesn't matter what the protest is; it's not relevant. But the amount of pepper spray that was sprayed onto these people's faces, was in Australia. I'm like, dudes, this is not.
Ridiculous.
You can't just be doing that. And they were treating
Yeah.
the pepper spray like it was nothing.
Fucking Glen 20.
Exactly. Like
Aerosol,
with
air
anti-vax.
freshener.
It was disgusting. I watched it and I went, I understand when you are feeling threatened and you need to, okay, I can't understand what it feels like. That's not my field. But I think the indiscriminate way that was getting sprayed in people's faces
Yeah,
was
yeah.
too much for me to watch. I was
Yes.
horrified, but I don't want to get into that. Okay, you've got your last one. What have you got? Have you got anything, or you're gonna?
The only thing that I didn't talk about was using DNA as storage.
Yes.
So this come up on I was watching CSI the other night, and because I've been binging it on Netflix, and they had a case where they had DNA that was synthetic. One of the suspects worked for a biotech company, and he was developing DNA, synthetic DNA that could turn ternary code into the nucleic acid sequences and
Yep.
store that in DNA. And then you could take that DNA, take the protein
Yep.
chain, translate that to the ternary, translate that to the binary, and you could literally open up a PDF file.
Yes.
And that has been done. I googled it. I was like,
Yes.
that is some cool shit.
So they're basically saying I did and Billy Carson's again was the guy who mentioned about this shit.
Yeah.
And basically it comes down to the fact that DNA is read-writable.
DNA is rewritable, but the
Read-writable.
problems with it now, it's actually been around for a while. So you've got the first instance of DNA being an idea in 1959. So that's how long they've been
Wow.
working on this shit.
And you like your
Oh
thing.
my God. So I'm going to say this, right? So in 2019, 16 gigabyte of English Wikipedia had been encoded in synthetic DNA. 2021, custom DNA data writer could write code data in DNA at 1 Mbps.
Yep.
So that's fucking slow. Like
Yep.
that's slow. You think about a download, that's slow.
Yep.
So
Yep.
the problem with the DNA storage is that it takes a long time to do. You can't just whip, that's it. Like the tech that we have
Okay, so
isn't
the
capable of
tech.
doing it as quick.
Oh, it's like Johnny Mnemonic. Remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But it can be used in vivo to store DNA data. So like store it in a person or in a thing.
Yes.
A molecular recorder in a living organism. And they do this using engineered E. coli cells. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Oh,
I've written probes and poop explained. Maybe they are using us for data storage or transferring their knowledge via probes.
It all makes sense.
It all makes
sense. Oh my goodness.
Yes, so yeah. That was all. That's all I've got. That's all I've got.
Okay, I'm gonna
DNA data. Yeah.
Okay, I think that is absolutely fantastic. It reminds me of the Keanu Reeves movie. I think it was called Johnny Mnemonic. And there were certain humans that had more memory processing powers, and they basically just plugged right into the bottom of people's brains, and they could they were secured data storage centers, and they would then like be couriers. Okay, I'm going to quickly just go through medical things we've gotten doing with chipping medical.
Oh, yes.
I'm only going to really go quickly because most of it we know about. We know we can do all of these medical implants. We know that we've got, you're putting hip replacements, you're putting pacemakers in, you're doing all of this kind of stuff. We're putting things in cochlear transplants.
Yeah.
Neurostimulators that are getting put in people to help with, pain issues and also with tremors and stuff like that. All of the stuff we've got for cardiovascular health, artificial, replacements, all
diabetes management.
Exactly. Yeah, crazy what we can do. But what I wanted to quickly talk about is microchips. And the reason why I wanted to talk with microchips is because it's becoming a fucking fad and people need to, again, I'm going to use it again, they're going to give themselves an uppercut. These people, look, this is going in the right direction. I actually think this is going in the right direction. I've often joked that as soon as chipping becomes really safe, I'm going to get chipped because I lose my phone literally 7 times a day. And the amount of lives, that I would add to not have to look for my fucking phone would be
You could
really.
just pull up Find My Phone on your little,
I'd just do
and
this,
there
and
it
I'd have
is.
my little heads up display going and telling me exactly where it is. But we are using microchips. People are embedding them under their bodies, subdermally, so that they can pay. They can just tap and go. They can open their doors. They can do all of the security screenings, holding identity documents, medical histories, and all of that kind of stuff on body. They had a guy on the project was talking about the other day, though. The issue is that they can quite easily, within their body, clone other people's identity equipment. So they're basically their card scanner so that they can get into someone's building. But
Yes.
because it's within someone's body, the legal realms of being able to access it become really foggy because it's part of a medical treatment because it's within the skin. So it can't be just subpoenaed in a court of law. You just can't take it out and look what the chip's got on it. Proving crime using these things is going to be.
Well, I suppose it would come down to like DNA access and stuff for people too. Like
It gets really foggy.
it's
And
gotta go through the systems before you can obtain it. So yeah,
yeah, so that's really interesting.
crazy.
But there's a movement of what they call themselves is transhumanism, which has been going on since forever. But it's basically the philosophical and intellectual movement that advocates the enhancement of the human condition by developing and making widely available new and future technologies that can greatly enhance longevity, cognitive functions, and
And
well-being.
cue cyberpunk.
People are just wanting to chip themselves up and they
Yeah.
want to become cyborgs.
Yeah, literally.
We want to become it. We've seen it and we want to become it. Now, what have we got? We've had Elon Musk has done his Neuralink. And this is where I found a lot of bias in it that I deem to be biased without having any scientific knowledge. So I don't know if it's real bias. People either love Elon Musk or they hate him. There's no
Yes.
between, and you're either supporting of his work and how
Yeah.
much advancement, or
Yeah.
you are absolutely ripping him a new one for the fact that he's stealing other people's technology and he's using unethical means to progress his technology.
Yes. Well, a lot of people are not on board with the fact that he's associated with old Trumpy.
Yeah, well, the thing is,
I was like, oh, is he? But then, I mean, as an entrepreneur, it makes sense to get into the pockets of wealthy people. So, it's kind of
I
like,
don't think he's worried about more money.
no, but
Like he's
like,
one of the richest of individuals on the
you've got
planet.
you've got people who have power and position to allow your creations to
Well, that's the
become
thing. It's where
mainstream.
and it's more the power. What you allow to happen because already with the Neuralink, there's talk that there was um, not the most ethical use of animal trials through the development of the technology. Now, did they successfully do it? Yes, they successfully transplanted a Neuralink into a human brain. They want to get a whole shitload more out there. And I actually went online and you can actually enroll if you're a paraplegic and have issues with that. They've actually got an enrollment form. Like I found the enrollment form that they're basically taking.
Wow.
What do you call it? Taking testing subjects.
Yep.
Um, Neuralink's original ambition, which Musk outlined when he founded the company in 2016, including meshing human brains with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Now, it's now, saying that it's just to help, people paraplegia, etc. He's not the only person who's doing research. Now, there was talk that this Neuralink that he implanted, the fibers were not really heavy duty enough. So
Yeah.
what's happened is the human brain actually moves a fair bit around in the skull.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone who's had a concussion knows that sometimes it can move
Nose. Yeah.
too much.
Exactly. Yep.
But it can wobble around like a little jelly in a mold.
Yep.
And a lot of the fibers broke. So
Yes.
its transmission speeds have reduced. But like again, I don't think that's a criticism. It's something that we just need to learn from and move forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think that means Elam's work is not viable. But we also have what called digital bridges, where they basically, if someone has had a severed spine or partially severed spine, they take the neural link from the basically the thought processes from the brain,
Yeah.
and they transport it into the cybernetics that they have, robotics that they have on the human body
Yes.
to
Yeah.
make people walk. And they have done this with a dude. He was paralyzed for 12 years. The first gen of the equipment, he said he didn't like it. It felt like that he would send the signal to say walk, and then the equipment would walk.
Yeah.
It was simply doing what it was programmed to
Yeah. It
do.
wasn't him controlling the. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
he would just say walk, and it would make him walk. And he
Yeah.
literally, it was the opposite of empowering. He
Yes.
felt like he was controlled by this equipment.
He
But
may as well. He may as well went back to a chair because at least he could control how it moved. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So now they've actually advanced that, and they have done it so that it works in a more, I send the message to that and then control it. So
Yeah.
from whereas he was very much, I'm walking, I'm not walking, very robotic, he now has control of the movement and he
Yeah.
loves it. And
Yes.
I'm thinking, I can't see how this can hurt us.
Well, then I kind of think of cyberkinetic like armor, military enhancement.
Oh, so you're looking Halo.
Halo, Pacific Rim, fucking
Yeah,
cyberpunk. Cyberpunk, they got like these military grade enhancements, like the
yeah, that's true.
anime series they brought out. Like he gets like this one of the spine ones put in straight off. But the only thing with that is that it eats into your like biological clock. Like the more enhancements you get, the more fucking crazy you get, and all that
Uh,
sort of shit. So
yeah, look, I reckon, yeah, okay. All
there,
right.
there is potential for bane
There's
and
potential in
blessing
all of this
in
to go
everything. Yeah,
horribly wrong.
it's yeah. We kind of have to just decide whether we're gonna be dicks or not.
Well, I think I've pretty much gone. The only thing I haven't gone through in my list of things that I researched is cloaking devices.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
and needless to say, we're doing really well with it. What a surprise. I think that's military related, because I can't understand why you need a cloaking device in any environment apart from military. You're doing really well. So obviously we have stealth bombers.
yay!
We have all of these methods of being able to cloak devices. It's obviously the we're not trying to make them invisible to the naked eye. We're trying to make them invisible to radar for heat sensing,
Yeah, that's it.
sound
Yep,
sensing, all of this kind of stuff. So it's not trying to make them invisible. I don't think we'll ever get there, but we are trying to make them, lower in all of those, what do they call it? Visual cross section, naked eye visibility,
yep,
infrared heat signature, reducing noise. We
yep.
can make a jet or a bomber appear like a bumblebee
Yeah,
on the
like it's
technology.
practically not there. Yeah,
Um, really, really crazy stuff. There's lots of different methods of doing it, plasma stealth and all of these different electromagnetic emissions and, dark paint that absorbs radars and all of this kind of crap.
mm,
But what I found really interesting is they're looking at optical meta minerals, and it's basically trying to work out the invisibility factor. And what it basically can do is it can use what technology does it use? I think it's electromagnetic technology,
mm,
and it works best in a murky environment, so cloudy environment, light fog, because you've already got refraction happening in the air. So there's already
yeah,
electrical particles that are going around, and it uses that. They've been able to make something near invisible in those conditions because it uses the refraction that's already going on to cloak the device. And they've
yeah.
got that happening, and they basically put it in murky water, and you could not see this thing coming. Don't
Right.
like that. Don't like
No.
that at all. And then they've got the last thing I've got, and I'm going to go with this because it reminds me of Predator so hard, which obviously is not really science fiction, but we'll go with it.
But
Action
it is,
adventure.
yeah.
Active camouflage. So using the tech we were talking about before with the 3D cameras and all of that kind of
Yeah,
shit,
yeah,
it
yeah.
basically you can wear clothing or cloth or a material that has the ability so that the cameras can work out what's behind you, and then it projects that forward off the cloth that you're wearing, so you aren't there.
So you ultimately green screen yourself.
You green screen yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
You
cool.
green screen yourself. I saw photos of this of actually in real life. It's horrible. It's horrible. It looks
doesn't quite blend into the old
no, it's horrible as in how good
background.
it is. It's how good it is. It
Oh,
looks like you're looking at a movie that has people that are camouflaging themselves. Like that one I was
okay,
watching the
yeah,
other day where the guy feels the wall, and as he feels the wall, he makes himself look like bricks.
yeah.
It's like that. And the main drawback for it at the moment is the fact that when it's moving, it's got lag.
Yeah.
It's laggy.
So you kind of only have to use it if you're stationary, otherwise you're gonna get
Yeah, but
fucking shot.
apparently the good old British Army have tested this and created an invisible tank.
Oh
Because you wouldn't want to know that that's coming.
no, while you're sitting there with your cup of tea and crumpets,
Have your cup of tea and
fucking
crumpets.
top of the morning to your belly. Oh fuck, there's a tank.
Where the fuck did that come from?
Where did that come from? I don't know. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh God, that was great. I loved this episode. I loved it. Thank God we can't be.
There's some shit out there, guys, and
Hopefully we never get teleportation working.
science
Hopefully.
fact. Look,
Hey,
I would be all on that. That would be so
so
cool.
I'm scared of that because I read Stephen King's book called The Jaunt, and it's all about the fact
Of course you
that
did. Yep.
I did, and it's all about the fact that when you teleport, you have to be asleep. And if you teleport when you're asleep, it's all fine. But if you're awake, it's not all fine.
Oh
And
god. Yep.
this young kid said, "Oh look, fuck it, I want to see. I want to know why it's not all right." And it's because the brain can't tell that it's a second. The brain in that moment of jaunting,
Okay.
it's
Yep.
detached from its body.
Yep.
It feels like an eternity, and the mind is driven mad.
Right.
This poor kid wakes up and rips his own eyeballs out because he's just basically woken up, and it's like he's been on his own in this black void for forever. So I don't like the idea of teleportation, and we've got the fly.
That's fucked.
The two things come together and all this kind of stuff. But we have been able to teleport photons. I don't know what that means, but I did read that. Sorry, people. I told everyone we
Lasers.
yeah, the science was going to be a bit
Yeah.
sketchy on some of this.
Alrighty.
Take a breath.
Take a breath. Go watch some science fiction and wonder what the fuck the government's up to, making this shit real.
Making this shit real.
And if you think it is, go Google it because it probably is.
Go over to Wikipedia, look up a page that's called List of Emerging Technologies, and read that and make sure that you never ever sleep again.
Exactly.
Because it's not very nice what we're doing out there.
No.
Gotta say.
All right.
I love that. That is like I love that. I had so much fun.
What are we doing next week, Petra?
We're going completely away from science, and we're going into healings and different healing modalities, shamanism, humorism, and all the other isms.
That will be, sounds like my cup of tea, governor.
Yeah. I'm not even going to try to do an accent. That is too good. Points to you, Tay.
Well, my nana was a full-blood pom, so I had a good teacher.
That's hilarious.
She was at a real Cockney accent too. She was from Cruise, so
yeah, you got it going on.
So I got it going on pretty good.
All right,
shall we?
What happens? Yeah.
Fuck Carl. Carl, I don't know who Carl is anymore. Is Carl a clone? Is Carl fucking extinct version of a feral cat that lived 100,000 years ago, who was impregnated into a goat? And Carl.
Oh, Carl.
Carl.
For the real Carl, please stand up.
For the real Carl, please stand up. Can I have your attention, please? For the real Carl, please stand. Y'all act like you never seen a cat before. So remember, people, curiosity may have killed a few cats because they didn't get her out of the way of that tank in time, but there's no growth in ignorant bliss. Bless you, Carl.
Good stuff. See everybody next week.
See you next week.